Down from Caithro, down the Mynach Rocks, in the lovely sunshine on tops of plain. And that's the Berwyn Ridge, 25 miles away, so the visibility is probably some 40 miles. And look, we have some supermarket beef. Your sirloins and your top side, and your roast beef Sunday lunch. There, and same that way as well. And the rain's coming in, lovely, isn't it? It's been lovely last week, except when it turned cold and wintry and snow. And it has been warm enough the past few days to wander around just a t-shirt, shorts. Now it's coming out of the sun. It gets pretty damn cold. So the wind's coming from the northeast, so rather like the few hours before Pearl Harbor, there's a nasty nip in the air. Oh, I can't see that, can I? That's a nasty tasteless joke from 80 years ago. I hope that nobody's offended. Anyway, yeah. So today, I want to talk a bit about Paul Graham's hierarchy of disagreement. This is an essay. Paul Graham is a computer programmer and writer and investor. In 2008, he wrote an essay about hierarchy of disagreement and how he noticed the level of discourse and you could say the level of intellectual rigor that takes place in any disagreement or argument. And he graded them in 7 levels from DH0 to DH6. You'll find them online. I don't want to run through this entire 7, to take a while. But basically, it starts at the bottom. The shape is in the triangle in the pyramid. The border at the bottom, obviously, is for you have quite a lot of argument take place at the lower level of rigor, and very few at the top. So at the bottom you have name calling. That's the most common. Just calling your opponent an asshat, just because they have a differing opinion. And above that, you have the ad hom. DH1 is ad hom, where you attack the characteristics or authority of the writer without addressing substance of the argument. Or indirectly from that, you also have, instead of attacking the authority, you have amplifying or accepting the authority to back up your claim as an indirect ad hom. So when you see people saying, oh, we must do this because Chris Whitty says so, well, that's exporting your critical thought to another source, just because they happen to have credentials. Again, that's an indirect ad hom, because you are just pinning your argument on somebody else's, rather than having any data of your own, having done any thought of your own. And so it goes on up into contradiction of tone, criticizes the tone of the argument. Contradiction states opposing case with little or no evidence. Counter-argument. Refutation. We're starting when we get to the refutation stage, finds mistake and explains why it is mistaken using quotes, and refuting the central point, explicitly refutes the central point. Well, this is what you're trying to do. And thankfully on Twitter it's not too bad. You'd see a lot of that. You see, what we want to try to do in any debate or any argument with anybody is to try to get at the heart of the problem, try to understand their point of view and understand what it is they're saying, why they've come to the conclusions they have, using what available evidence they have. And that way you try to dismantle their argument for them, if you're able to. And obviously you have to accept that they will try to do the same for you. So it eventually gets to an argument of data versus data, which is where we are in science-ism. I'm afraid we have one group of scientists say one thing, another group says another. And so what you do then, if you don't have a degree, are you actually allowed to disagree and have an opinion? As somebody said to me a couple of years ago. But you can only successfully argue or debate with somebody if they're capable of doing so on the same level of disagreement as you are. If they're not, if they're stuck on the ad hom, well, basically forget it. And yes, I do engage in DH1 0 and DH1. Basically, if I just see the argument has just been so thin, it's just laughable. You just laugh at it, you just dismiss it out of hand. But if you can, the point is not to waste time on doing something completely and utterly pointless. If you have somebody who just engages in ad hom repeatedly, doesn't even engage, just says, oh, it just reported in the Sun, so therefore has no merit, even if the Sun links to an original article. Well, that's just, if you see that taking place, that basically that's insecurity. And there is no point. There's absolutely no point engaging with anybody like that. And they're probably doing is to try to grind you down, to try to make you give up trying to make any valid point on the argument in itself. So just don't engage. I'm quite willing to engage with people if they are able to drill, if they're able to have a sit down and have a conversation. What you want to try to achieve is actually have a conversation with somebody, not an argument. That way you can put your egos away and you can actually have a proper intellectual discussion, even if you don't agree. If you have to agree to disagree, and so you manage to get to a stage where you are talking about data versus data. But really, for the most part, people just don't talk about. They don't have the ability to go into any form of rigor, and they just end up talking about on a very shallow term. And DH1, actually DH0 and DH1 are very, very common when it comes into the political sphere, and we'll talk about that probably a bit further down the lane. It's getting a little bit nippy up here. Oh, nippy. And then look, just watching the beef walking away behind me and get you onto the brambles. Where are they going? See if you can find them. Beef just wandering down the hill. Get something to eat. I'll speak to you later on.